Ah, man, we live in a pretty scary timeline right now where they're trying to basically, or at least Sony is trying to get rid of physical media, despite the fact that Sony is a multi-billion-dollar company. They don't want you to have things physically anymore. They want to lock everything like anime and video games behind a stupid subscription service. And thankfully, the reaction to this has been strongly negative. So I believe that if people are smart enough to vote with their wallets, at least Sony will give up on this ideal. Honestly, the only PS5 games I'm looking forward to is that Wolverine game, but knowing Insomniac and their writing, I'm cautious, but the gameplay looks cool. And the GTA 6, which I just said people should vote with their wallets, but the thing is, we all know GTA 6 will be a huge, massive success. So other companies might look at GTA 6 as, digital release only and be like, oh, see, it worked for GTA 6. That means we don't got to make physical games anymore. So, yeah, we'll have to see in the future. But thankfully, that's really about it. It's not all doom and gloom, though. There have been some really good and great modern games, and it's also really cool seeing some old games make a comeback as well, or get a proper remake. But anyway, with this whole stupid situation of Sony trying to erase physical media, it made me think and reflect on some other dumb moments in video game history, and I'll just go over them here. 2015 was going to be an interesting year for video games because at the time we had the final Batman Arkham game to come out to conclude the story, and we were also expecting to get The Witcher 3, which was also supposed to end the Witcher story. But the game I was looking forward to the most, or at least watching on YouTube anyway, because at the time I couldn't afford a console, was Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. This was it. This was going to be the game where the character Big Boss would go full demon, and we were going to see what happened. Now, technically speaking, Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain did not need to exist. In fact, any Metal Gear Solid game after MGS4 did not need to exist. Hideo Kojima, the creator of the franchise, did not want to make any more Metal Gear games after Metal Gear Solid 2. Why did Kojima bother making Metal Gear Solid 3, 4, and 5 and Peace Walker? Well, there's a mixture of internet rumors. Some say it's death threats, high fan demand, and, it could be just because Kojima actually did want to. I mean, with Metal Gear Solid 4, there were indicators that he didn't want to make the game, like making Solid Snake old and miserable. But why did he bother making Peace Walker and Metal Gear Solid 5 to expand Big Boss's story? I don't know. Because the thing about Metal Gear Solid 3 is that the ending is perfect, it's beautiful. It lets the player make up their own conclusion about why Big Boss became the way he did. But whatever. Anyway, after the whole announcement of Metal Gear Solid 5, we did get to see some graphics and gameplay, and it looked incredible. In fact, to this day, Metal Gear Solid 5 is one of the most fun games ever. But the story was not that good. In fact, it's arguably, no, it's not arguable. It is the worst Metal Gear Solid game from a story perspective. Metal Gear Solid 5 is super fun, but the whole vibe and the story of the game just feels off. Like, it feels unfinished. And there's also a lot of noticeable moments where the characters could be speaking, but they didn't bother talking. This was because Metal Gear Solid 5 had a horrific development history. Konami and Kojima apparently had some sort of beef, and to this day, in 2026, we still don't fully know the story or the context because Japanese companies, especially Konami, are very secretive. I guarantee you contracts were signed so people had to keep their mouths shut. People think that Kojima went way over budget because the game was going to be too advanced or something like that. But to be fair here, Konami is a multi-billion-dollar company, and Metal Gear Solid 5 was a huge success. And other people just blame Konami because of their horrible work conditions, because there were stories of Konami putting cameras in the office or rushing developers or making them do horrible crunch times. Sort of like the same working conditions for Red Dead Redemption 2. And why does the game barely have any voice acting compared to other games, especially the ones in the Metal Gear Solid series? This is because voice acting is super expensive, and for Big Boss, they replaced the original voice actor with Kiefer Sutherland, who's like super famous and more expensive. And the biggest kick in the balls is the fact that the game is unfinished story-wise. Not that the story was that good, But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5 doesn't really have much of a conclusion. Things just happen. Like, there's a moment in the game where the child soldiers end up kidnapping and stealing the giant Metal Gear that can launch nukes, and it's never resolved. The only way you can see how that story arc ends is to go on YouTube and watch an unfinished cutscene, and that should have been in the main game. Imagine playing through Final Fantasy X, but the only way you could see the ending and final boss was to go on YouTube and watch it. The Last of Us 1 never needed a sequel, but I was all down for it. And when The Last of Us 2 got announced, I was hyped. It was the first game I ever pre-ordered. I finally had a source of income, and I pre-ordered the game, and then the game got leaked, and there was all sorts of weird rumors going on. I mean, there's a trans character, Joel ends up dying. Now, to be fair here, everybody and their mom knew that Joel was going to die at some point in The Last of Us 2. After all, the first game does confirm that Joel really only made it through luck, and this is a world full of people who are armed to the teeth, and, there's also cannibal man-eating zombies out there. The fact that Joel lasted as long as he did is a miracle, considering that a lot of adults in the game end up passing away. But despite the leaks, I was still optimistic. I mean, those alt-right incel haters, they pretty much hate every modern game. Then the game finally came out. I played it without seeing any spoilers, and I thought it was okay. Like, I made a lot of videos trash-talking The Last of Us 2. But the truth is, I think The Last of Us 2 has way better gameplay than the first game. But the story and the dialogue and the characters were just way worse. But I think the worst thing about the game is just the killing of Joel. Now, like I said earlier, people expected Joel to die, but his death felt so lazy and forced. Like, why would Joel and Tommy just casually trust a bunch of strangers with guns? Even Joel and Tommy in the first game were way more careful. And the killing of Joel, it pretty much just left the IP completely dead. I mean, don't get me wrong, The Last of Us 2 did sell well, although lower compared to the first game and other Sony games. But after seeing the horrible writing in Part 2 and looking at that new Intergalactic trailer with that unappealing, smug-looking character, I don't feel like buying a Last of Us 3. I know for a fact The Last of Us 3 is going to come out at some point. It is an IP that they can milk. What characters were we left with after Joel died? Well, we have Ellie, who is the best character in The Last of Us 2, but that's not really saying much considering that the other characters in The Last of Us 2 are pretty mid and stupid and underdeveloped. Ellie is just not a fun character to play as. She's just vengeful and hateful 90% in the game, and now she has PTSD, so I don't really know how The Last of Us 3 can make that work. And we're also left with Abby and her trans kid friend, and they're also very uninteresting characters. Like, they never say or do anything interesting or funny. Like, don't get me wrong, Abby is a good killer, but in a video games, there's plenty of characters that are good at killing. Abby pretty much has no personality. The Last of Us 2 also has some very forced in, weird political messages that don't even add anything to the story. They're just padded in filler, like having a gay pride district. Like, where was that at in the first game?
Hey, Ellie, this place is a synagogue. How can you tell? One, there are menorah decorations on the wall. It's a Jewish thing. And two, I didn't burst into flames just now, so... Burst into flames? That's just a dumb joke. Oh, unlike your other ones. You shut up.
I don't mind media being political, but the politics centering around said media aren't relevant to the story or themes, then I honestly don't care. Like, having forced in politics that are just filler and could have been left out of the game, it just feels like the writers were trying to reinforce their political bias, and that's very annoying. Honestly, to me, the only Last of Us game that's canon is the first game, and seeing Sony bleed money and get way more hate because they're trying to remove physical media, is actually pretty satisfying. When Intergalactic comes out, I hope the game flops. One of the worst remakes I've ever seen in a video game. Like, splitting the game into parts, that's very stupid and greedy. Like, In order to experience the Final Fantasy VII Remake to this full potential, you gotta wait a whole console generation. And the common argument that remake fans love to use is that, they had to split the game into parts because Final Fantasy VII is just that big. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. There are other JRPGs that are way bigger and way longer than Final Fantasy VII. They could have easily just remade Final Fantasy VII and put it all into one game. And the thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake is that it's not even faithful to the original source material. I mean, it has the same characters, whoop-de-doo, in the same setting, but the gameplay is totally different, and the writing and lore is completely ruined. It's actually been butchered. So, yeah, I consider Final Fantasy VII Remake to be one of the dumbest decisions ever in gaming history. It doesn't help that these remakes, Final Fantasy VII Remake and what's it called? I forgot the sequel. They didn't really sell that well, and they haven't really won any, Game of the Year awards. And I think that's good, Like, I'm glad these Final Fantasy VII remakes have been flopping, because the original, they don't got nothing on the original. In 2020, a trailer dropped for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Oh my god. We are going to have a modern Arkham universe game. This is going to be fantastic. And it's going to introduce the Justice League to the Arkham universe. Oh my goodness. Fans have been wondering about that for years. And the trailer came out. It was a cinematic trailer, and it looked fun. The characters' personalities, they were awesome. And then the game goes on hiatus. It got delayed. Then some time later passed, and we finally got a gameplay trailer. And it looks like Fortnite. That was the first major red flag to me, and pretty much put me off of the game. Like, this is the Arkham universe we're talking about. The hand-to-hand combat in the Arkham games is awesome. Why is every character in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League using a gun? I know they're not skilled as Batman, but come on. You even gave King Shark a gun. You can't just use his super strength. And Harley, I know she uses guns, but in the Arkham Knight DLC, she's a perfectly capable fighter who doesn't need a gun. The game also had weird live service elements implemented into the gameplay, and yeah, nobody liked this. Then the game brought back Poison Ivy and made her a kid. Why? Poison Ivy is a very fan service DC character. Sometimes she's even a lesbian. And one of her traits is that she seduces people in order to, do her villainous plans. And they made this character who's known for seducing people into a child? That's very suspect, And the most disrespectful thing about the game, the cherry on top of the shit sandwich, was the Suicide Squad killing Batman. After all the things that we see the Arkham universe Batman go through, he dies in such a pathetic and lame way. And then it's weird too, because before killing Batman, Harley Quinn is like, oh, you bully us poor mentally ill criminals. Like, bitch, you are a murderer. Like, you don't deserve any sympathy. I really hate this narrative that certain writers have that try to make Batman look like the bad guy. Like, oh, but Batman beats up the mentally ill. Batman beats up murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. I don't see the issue with that. If you see the issue with that, then you probably support Poison Ivy being made into a little kid. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was a massive failure. Practically nobody bought the game, and the game was also super expensive to produce. So it was a financial bomb, and it literally killed the Rocksteady studio. And what's even more crazy is that later on it was pretty much revealed that none of the people who worked on the Arkham games even worked on Suicide Squad, the video game. And what also sucks is that this is one of Kevin Conroy's, the voice of Batman. This is one of his last roles, and it's so lame. Before 100% dying, the Suicide Squad game would get some lame DLCs that introduce other characters, and it's revealed that, we're using the whole multiverse bullshit that every other superhero Marvel movie has used. We got Mrs. Freeze, who looks like she was drawn by a fat, feminist, failed liberal college student. The final DLC cutscenes for the game didn't even have, fully motion cutscenes or animation. They were just lame comic drawings. What an awful failure of a video game. And hey, since this game was a massive failure, I guess we're never getting a Justice League game anytime soon, that doesn't revolve around being a 2D fighter. Hey, remember when I said that Final Fantasy VII Remake was the worst remake ever? Well, I take that back. The worst remake ever is actually Yakuza Kiwami 3, which is a remake of Yakuza 3. This remake is pretty much worse in every way. Even the graphics are bad, with some buildings not even popping in. There's a bunch of things that were wrong with Kiwami 3. I mean, first of all, they got a Predator to voice one of the characters in the Japanese dub. Young Yi is in the game voicing Kiryu and still doing a terrible job. Yakuza Kiwami 3 is also the lowest rated Yakuza game ever. And Yakuza Kiwami 3 also borderline replaced the original game. Like the original Yakuza 3, if you want to play that on modern consoles, you can't anymore unless you get it physically, which is going to get rarer over time. Thankfully, I bought the game digitally, but now if you want to play the original Yakuza 3, you gotta go out of your way to get it on PC. But guess what? On Steam, the original Yakuza 3 is hidden behind a bundle pack, which is like $100+. So, yeah. I mean, the game is on GOG for now. Hopefully it will stay there. But that was such a massive dick move to just try and make the original Yakuza 3 harder to get for newer fans. And since Young Yi is a fat sellout slob shill, he can't even say anything negative about Kiwami 3. He wants to report on other games doing horribly, but he's contractually not allowed to say anything bad about Yakuza Kiwami 3, which I have to reiterate again is the lowest rated Yakuza game ever. Also, the game was a financial flop. So please, no more Yakuza remakes. The Yakuza 4 and 5, they still hold up. So if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you. I'm glad you found me worthy of listening to. I mainly just do videos to express my thoughts and to talk shit, and I don't really put much effort into my content because YouTube is not my job, and most of my videos don't get any views. I literally have no financial incentive to put much effort into my content. That's why I literally record with my phone. And I'm not a video game doomer. I still maintain the ideal that there are still plenty of good modern games that are out there, like especially with JRPGs, like with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I hear that was great. I haven't played it yet. I gotta play 2, but I did play Metaphor ReFantazio, and that game was awesome. And it's also really cool seeing Dragon Quest make a comeback in the West. I'm also looking forward to Metal Gear Solid 4 coming to modern consoles and PC, because that game has been stuck on the PlayStation 3 for almost 20 years. Same for Peace Walker as well. And that Wolverine game, that looks cool. GTA 6, it might... I'm cautious about it, because for all I know, GTA 6 could be like Cyberpunk 2077 and have an awful launch. But what also stinks about GTA 6 is that it's going to be digital only. And we all know for a fact that when GTA 6 sells like hotcakes, which it already has, considering a lot of dumb people already pre-ordered the game, other companies will look at GTA 6 and be like, oh, see, we can make our games digital only. So, yeah, I hope, PlayStation and other companies, go back on the whole digital only ideal. It's a horrible ideal, especially considering not everybody has internet, So, yeah, thanks again for watching this video, and on to play